Stop. It's not a request, it's an order. A force that doesn't come from outside but from within. There's something in you that already knows there's no such thing as chance. The simple fact that this video crossed your path is a silent sign that the old cycle has ended. The universe doesn't waste energy. When it places a message before you, it's because your soul has finally opened to hear it. It's not the algorithm. It's not fate. It's you calling yourself back. Feel. There's something vibrating beneath your skin, like an ancient whisper you forgot to understand. That shiver isn't an ordinary emotion. It's your body reacting to the presence of the invisible. It's the touch of your own spirit saying, "Wake up." For a long time you've been asking for a sign, and the sign is this moment. Now. This exact second when you realize that there's no turning back. Everything that brought you here, the pains that seemed unfair, the weights that broke you, the people who left you, these weren't punishments. They were codes. Every loss, every silence, every void was the universe carving space within you for the new to be born. There's no mistake in anything you've experienced, only the perfect preparation for the moment when the memory awakens. Nothing happened against you. Everything happened for you. Listen to me. The world you see with your eyes is an illusion, a luminous projection of what you held in your mind and felt in your heart. You don't live in a solid world. You live within a fluid mirror that moves to the rhythm of your belief. Every gaze that judged you, every door that closed, every fear that paralyzed you, these were reflections of your own vibration. And that's why this moment is sacred, because now you begin to see the mechanism. Do you realize? Nothing out there has a will of its own. Everything that moves in your life is merely obeying what you emanate. The universe is the perfect servant of consciousness. It doesn't judge, doesn't question, doesn't doubt. It merely replicates. It reflects exactly what you assume to be true about yourself. If you see yourself as small, it shrinks you. If you see yourself as lost, it envelops you in fog. But if for an instant you see yourself as a creator, the cosmos itself bows before you. Therefore, don't think you're merely watching a video. This isn't entertainment. It's a mirror, a remembrance, a vibrational reconfiguration. Every word you hear now does not come from me. It comes from the part of you that already knows, but which had been silenced by haste, doubt, and pain. The universe isn't trying to alert you about something to come. It's merely telling you, the moment is now. Return, reclaim. Breathe. Feel the weight of old things dissolving. That slight chill isn't cold, it's energy moving. It's your true name being called within eternity. You weren't chosen by chance, you were remembered. And one who remembers who they are never sleeps again. Everything you perceive out there is merely a reflection of what you hold within. And until you understand this deeply, you will continue to interpret the world as something that happens to you, rather than something you are creating. Humanity's first mistake is believing that reality is an external force that needs to be controlled, when, in truth, it is a shadow projected by consciousness itself. The universe doesn't show what is true, it shows what you believe to be true. That's why two people can experience the same situation and see completely different worlds. The miserable and the wise look at the same day, the same sun, the same ground, but each walks in a universe made of the substance of their faith. Reality isn't solid. It is malleable, alive, and responds to the invisible touch of your imagination. It's like a liquid mirror that reflects exactly what you assume to be. And that's why the world seems so resistant when you try to change it by force, because you're trying to adjust the reflection without changing the face. Nothing can change as long as the inner image remains the same. If you believe you are a victim, the universe will provide circumstances that confirm this. If you believe you are rejected, every glance will seem like judgment. But if you start to see yourself as loved, prosperous, worthy, the world silently reorganizes the atoms around you to reflect this new certainty. This is where most people fail. They try to modify the experience without modifying the state. They ask for signs, await miracles, but continue to dwell in the same feeling of lack. They want a new outcome without abandoning the old identity. And that is impossible. The universe is too precise to contradict itself. It doesn't react to what you desire. It obeys what you are. Everything that manifests is a perfect replica of your current state of consciousness. You don't attract what you want. You manifest what you believe yourself to be. Notice how this truth dismantles the entire illusion of chance. Life isn't testing you nor punishing you. It is revealing you. Every event is a response to the vibration you silently maintain. Every obstacle is a mirror placed before your fear. Every blessing is an echo of your recognition. The world isn't against you. It is you disguised as the world. When this understanding descends from the mind to the body, something changes. Fear loses its power. Urgency dissolves. You understand that all you need to do is maintain the desired state with serenity and certainty. The universe is a faithful servant. It doesn't dispute orders. It merely executes what your consciousness declares to be real. When you say, "I am poor," it doesn't ask if that's what you want. It merely multiplies experiences that sustain that affirmation. When you say, "I am blessed," the same mechanism activates, and the invisible begins to work to confirm this new reality. Therefore, true prayer isn't a repetition of words, but a dwelling in the feeling of what you already are. One who understands this law stops reacting to the world and begins to direct it. They no longer ask for signs. They create them. And when the reflection finally changes, they smile, not out of surprise, but out of recognition, because they know that nothing happened out there. It was merely the mirror responding, as it always does, to the image that now observes it with the eyes of a creator. Nothing changes until you die, not externally, but internally. This is the truth the mind fears and the spirit recognizes. As long as you insist on carrying the same self that complains, feels forgotten, seeks approval, and fears silence, the universe will remain still. Because it doesn't respond to words. It responds to the identity you sustain. Each time you say, "I want to change," but still feel small, it's the old self trying to survive. And as long as it exists, the new cannot be born. Consciousness cannot occupy two places at once. Either you dwell in the past, or you embrace the present as a creator. Inner death isn't a metaphor. It's an act of courage. It's the moment you shed everything you believed yourself to be, all the stories you used to justify pain, and step naked into the presence of truth itself. It is there you realize that suffering was merely attachment to the old form, and that everything resisting change was fear of losing control. But the truth is that only when you release control does the invisible begin to act. The old identity must crumble for awakened consciousness to rise. This death is silent yet devastating. It doesn't come with fire, but with the weight of surrender. It's when you finally stop fighting what is and begin to feel the strength of what has always been. In that instant, the begging self disappears, and the I Am takes the throne. The one who asks ceases to exist. The one who commands is born. And this is the transition that separates the ordinary person from the awakened one. One lives asking the world to change, the other changes the world by changing their state. The universe is perfect in its obedience. It doesn't judge, doesn't dispute, doesn't correct. It merely responds. When you say, "I am forgotten," it sends forgetfulness. When you say, "I am loved," it moves hearts and circumstances for this to manifest. It is an absolute law, and you are within it. There's no escaping it, only awakening. Therefore, when the old self dies, the entire world changes its tune. People disappear, places lose meaning, old dreams dissolve. It's the body of the old consciousness decomposing. Don't fear this process. It is the beginning of your sovereignty. You were taught to cling to identity because you believed it protected you, but it only limited you. What you call security is just fear disguised. Let it die. Allow everything that no longer resonates with your greatness to be taken. Inner death is the baptism of true life. The fire that destroys the ego is the same fire that reveals gold. So stop fearing the void. It is there that the new self is born. The one who doesn't ask, doesn't doubt, doesn't wait. The self that assumes, that declares, that creates. When the old dies, awakened consciousness opens its eyes and realizes, the universe never resisted me. It was I who resisted myself, and in that instant, the world obeys. Because now, it is no longer man speaking. It is divinity itself, clothed in silence. When the invisible begins to move, the visible world crumbles, and this is where many lose faith because they confuse collapse with punishment. But the universe doesn't destroy to punish, it destroys to realign. The crumbling that frightens you is, in fact, the old structure giving way to the new state you have chosen to be. When consciousness changes, everything around it is forced to reorganize. People distance themselves, plans fail, paths change direction, not because something went wrong, but because the old scenery no longer accommodates the new frequency. The universe will not let you dwell in the house you yourself set ablaze with the light of consciousness. There is a moment when everything seems to crumble at once. Money slips away, relationships falter, loneliness grows, and the ego screams, "I am being punished." But the soul whispers, "I am being purified." The crumbling is proof that the invisible has begun to act. It is a sign that the new state has already been assumed and the old is being undone. You are losing nothing, you are being redesigned. The old foundations built on fear and doubt must fall. The universe does not build palaces on unstable ruins. This is the part where few persist. They see the ground give way and retreat, trying to rebuild what should have died. But the awakened one observes the destruction in silence. They understand that every loss is a disguised liberation, that every closing is merely the invisible saying, "This door no longer leads to your destiny." They do not fight against chaos, they bless it. Because they know that chaos is the way creation uses to reorder what you have already decreed in spirit. Realize, nothing that dissolves is truly gone. It is merely changing form. That job that ended, the relationship that departed, the project that failed, all of this was condensed matter of a state you no longer are. The consciousness that now dwells within you no longer fits the previous vibration. That's why the world seems to crumble. It is rebuilding itself under a new geometry. So, when everything begins to break, don't ask for explanations. Become silent. Observe. One who understands the law does not weep before the ruins. They smile because they recognize the beginning of a new creation. Destruction is merely birth in disguise. And when the dust settles, you will see that nothing was truly lost. What fell was just the scenery. The actor remains. And now they are ready to play a new role on a larger stage with a higher consciousness. Accept the crumbling as a sacred ritual. Every collapse is the universe clearing the way, removing what no longer vibrates with your new state. It is the invisible response to the decree you made, even if unconsciously, by deciding to be different. Therefore, do not despair when everything begins to unravel. Feel the sound of the collapse as music. It is the sound of reality adjusting to your new identity, because the invisible always manifests this way, first in silence, then in ruin, and finally in revelation. The signs you seek so earnestly do not come from outside. They are echoes of what is awakening within you. When consciousness begins to shift its frequency, the universe responds in a symbolic language, a language not made of words, but of coincidences, repetitions, sensations. That's why, suddenly, you see repeating numbers, meet people who talk about what you were thinking, or feel shivers for no apparent reason. None of this is chance. They are manifestations of your own field vibrating, saying, "I heard your call." But the human mind, accustomed to control, insists on seeking external explanations. It turns every sign into superstition, as if the universe were testing your faith. It is not. The universe doesn't test, it reflects. These signs aren't future messages. They are mirrors of the now. They aren't saying it will happen. They are saying it is already happening within you. The number that appears, the butterfly that crosses your path, the sudden shiver, all of this is yourself trying to remember that you have already assumed the new state, even if you are not yet conscious of it. The error lies in seeking confirmation in the reflection instead of the source. The one who lives waiting for signs is like someone who, upon seeing the mirror smile, asks if they should smile back. The sign is useless if you don't understand the power that emits it. Therefore, stop interpreting the world as if it were judging or guiding you. It merely repeats you. If signs are multiplying, it's not the universe trying to convince you. It's your faith gaining substance. It is matter beginning to obey the vibration of certainty. Realize what this means. Signs are not warnings, they are confirmations. They emerge when reality begins to adjust to the new identity you have assumed. It is the invisible reorganizing itself to give form to what has already been decreed. And the more you align yourself, the more the world responds with synchronicities, improbable encounters, and moments that give you shivers. This isn't magic, it's precision. Creation always announces when it is about to manifest, but not for you to wait, but for you to uphold. Therefore, when the sign comes, do not doubt, do not analyze, do not tell the world. Be silent. Receive it as one who receives an intimate confirmation of a secret pact with the divine. The true Creator doesn't need anyone to believe, they simply know. And it is this knowing that makes the entire universe bow. Signs are the silent language of I Am. They appear to remind you that power isn't in the eyes that see, but in the consciousness that creates what is seen. So, the next time the world shows you a sign, don't ask what it means. Ask yourself what within you called it. Because nothing comes to you by chance. Everything is a response, everything is an echo. Everything is the reflection of the Creator awakening within creation. True power makes no noise. It doesn't need to prove anything because it is absolute in itself. The power that moves the universe is silent. And yet it causes stars to be born, seas to move, time to bend. Such is also the power of the awakened one, invisible to common eyes, yet irresistible in the realm of causes. While the ordinary person clamors, begs, and fears, the awakened one simply knows. They don't ask, they declare, they don't beg, they command, not with arrogance, but with divine serenity. Because they understand that creation doesn't happen through effort, but through the state sustained in silence. This is the secret the noisy mind never understands. Silence is the language of one who has already won. It is the sound of certainty, the space where reality bows. When you speak with doubt, the universe hears hesitation. When you become silent with faith, the universe hears conviction. It is in silence that the Creator acts because it is there that the vibration is pure, without interference. No force in the world can resist a consciousness that rests in the certainty that what it desires already is. Therefore, close your eyes and listen to the void. Within it is accumulated power, awaiting only your command. And this command isn't verbal, it's vibrational. It is the internal decision to assume a state and remain in it, without allowing appearances to shake you. True command doesn't come from the lips, but from the feeling sustained with constancy. It is the "it already is" that vibrates within you, even if the world says otherwise. And the world, obedient, will eventually yield. The awakened one knows that creation isn't reaction, it is revelation. They don't respond to what they see, they allow what is invisible to become visible. They understand that matter is slow, and that time is merely the distance between the decree and the manifestation. Therefore they don't force, they simply remain. While others exhaust themselves trying to push life, they withdraw and watch the invisible work in their favor. With each moment of conscious silence, they move mountains without even touching them. Real power is like the wind. No one sees it, but everyone feels its effects. It passes and changes everything without needing to announce itself. Such is the one who has understood the law. They live in the world, but are no longer of it. They become the immovable center within chaos. And when they speak, their words aren't mere sounds, they are decrees. Creation recognizes the authority in their voice because it comes from the same place where the universe was born. So, when fear tries to make you run, stop. When doubt tries to make you ask, become silent. And when the world seems to challenge you, just smile, because it is about to bend. True power is that of the consciousness that doesn't react, but merely assumes. One who understands this needs no physical strength, arguments, or luck. They merely sustain being, and being, as cause, transforms everything. Because the power that creates realities never shouts, it simply is. Now that you have heard, remain in silence for an instant. Feel the weight of the words passing through the air and touching something in you that cannot be explained, only recognized. This was not just a discourse, it was a mirror. Every phrase was a knock on the door of your own remembrance, because you didn't need to learn anything new, just to remember what you always knew. Everything you sought outside has always been within. The world you tried so hard to fix, change, control, it was never the problem. It was merely the reflection of what you believed yourself to be. And now something within you begins to understand. The power that moves reality isn't in the hands that act, but in the consciousness that assumes. From this moment on, stop asking for things to change. Stop supplicating for signs, for proofs, for answers. All of that belongs to the old self that no longer serves you. Instead, declare in silence with the strength of one who knows, I already am, and then remain. Let the universe reorganize itself around your certainty, because it has no choice. It is merely the echo of what you have decided to be. You are not the character in the plot. You are the author. You are not a piece on the board. You are the one who moves the pieces. And what you call destiny is merely the delayed reflection of what you have already decreed in spirit. Therefore, walk from now on with a new consciousness. Speak less. Feel more. Observe the invisible working around you, not with anxiety, but with reverence. Because every movement, every coincidence, every silence is living proof that the universe is obeying your new state. The warning the universe brought you isn't a threat, it's a reminder. It is calling you back to the throne, sit on it, claim your place, and, in silence, let the world bow before the one who finally remembered how to be. Stop looking for the extraordinary outside yourself. While you chase after signs, miracles, and proofs, you forget that everything that happens to you, be it triumph or misery, is merely the shadow of what you silently accepted within yourself. The world doesn't make mistakes. It has no will of its own. It merely reflects like a cold mirror what you have held as real in your innermost being. And this reflection is merciless, for it doesn't respond to what you declare with your mouth, but to the state you dare to carry in your heart. Life never argues with you, never. It doesn't listen to your complaints, nor your pleas, nor the long speeches with which you try to convince it. Life is not a judge to whom you must present arguments. It is a servant that merely obeys the silent command emanating from your being. That's why so many pray without seeing answers, ask without receiving, cry out without change. Because while the lips speak one thing, the inner state screams another. And it is this hidden scream, often unconscious, that life hears and reproduces. And look back, look at the events of your history. Every victory, every loss, every encounter, and every failure was not by chance, nor bad luck, nor blind fortune. Everything was aligned with the inner posture you maintained. You may even have believed certain things were imposed upon you, but no, you allowed them by inhabiting the state that corresponded to them. Just as a shadow doesn't move without the body, your life isn't shaped without the state you occupy. And this is where few have the courage to face the truth. You are a victim of nothing but your own persistence in states you no longer desire. Slavery is not in the facts, but in the habit of always recognizing yourself in the same inner place. This is the most subtle prison, living by repeating states you could abandon at any instant, but don't, because you've learned to call I that which was never you. If you insist on searching outside, you will always be like a beggar at the door of a banquet. That unknowingly is within your own house. Everything is already prepared, but you keep waiting for the dish to arrive from others' hands. You don't realize that the only key that opens the doors lies in what you decide to assume as true. Now understand, the world you call reality is not solid, not fixed, not immutable. It is as malleable as clay. But this clay does not yield to fragile requests or lukewarm hopes. It only obeys the firm touch of a state assumed with conviction. When you settle into this state, when you wear it like a second skin, the entire world begins to silently reorganize itself to reflect what you have become within. And if everything that exists outside is a reflection, why keep looking out there for what will never come from within? You don't have problems. What you call a problem is merely the name you give to the reflection of a state you yourself maintained within. The world creates nothing on its own. It only responds. Debt is not debt. It is the echo of a state of scarcity you carried. Illness is not illness. It is the reflection of a state of fragility you assumed, consciously or not. Loneliness is not loneliness. It is the return of a state in which you saw yourself as separated, rejected, or unworthy of companionship. Life has no autonomy to impose anything on you. It only delivers impersonally and perfectly the harvest of the seed you silently planted. It's hard to face this because it means there are no excuses, no victims, no one else to blame. But at the same time, it is liberating. Because if the root is within you, the power to uproot and plant anew is also there. You can spend years trying to resolve the effect and remain trapped. You extinguish one flame here, another appears there, because the cause was never external. People fight symptoms and forget the source. It's like someone who sees a crooked reflection in the mirror and tries to fix the glass instead of adjusting their own posture. It's no use chasing new opportunities, new doctors, new relationships, if your inner state remains the same. Life only changes when you change your state, not when you change your scenery. The state is an invisible garment you choose to wear. It's not about what you casually think, nor what you say you believe. It's the silent conviction that accompanies you when no one is watching. It's how you perceive yourself, what you take for granted. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles to achieve, that is the state. If you see yourself as someone constantly rejected, that is the state. And the world, obedient, will make sure to bring about episodes that confirm the image you yourself decided to wear. Changing states is not a task for a moment of euphoria, but for a firm decision. It's not an imaginary escape, but an inner repositioning. When you decide to inhabit another state, everything begins to dissolve. What seemed solid loses its grip, like mist dissipating with the sun. Debt loses its weight, because it no longer corresponds to the new state. Illness loses its hold, because it no longer finds fertile ground in your consciousness. Loneliness loses its voice, because it no longer finds an echo in one who recognizes themselves as complete. It is at this point that you realize there were no problems in themselves, but merely states you carried and have now let go of. The great illusion is to believe that you need something external to change your state. The weak mind thinks, when I have money, then I will feel prosperous. When I find someone, then I will feel loved. When I am healed, then I will feel healthy. But this is the inverted path. The state creates the fact, never the other way around. You dress yourself first, and only then does the world adapt. That's why many never change their lives. They wait for the reflection before changing the body. If you understand this truth, there will be no more despair. Change is not miles away, nor does it depend on special circumstances. It is found in a sustained thought, in a decision to remain in a new self-recognition. The state is the true soil of life. Plant in it and you will see the fruits. Change it and you will see the entire world reorganize itself. Don't fight against shadows. Don't call a problem that which is merely a reflection. Assume another state, and the reflection will have no choice but to follow. This is law, and law does not fail. What your eyes show you is not the truth. It is merely the delayed effect of what you have already carried within. External reality always lags a few steps behind the inner state, like an echo that takes time to dissipate. But people deceive themselves and take this delay as definitive. They look at the lack of money and say, "It's proven, I am poor." They look at the sick body and conclude, "This is what I am." They look at the absence of opportunities and accept, "Destiny has closed the doors on me." Thus they kneel before appearances, without realizing that appearances are merely the aged reflection of an old state. The Creator does not negotiate with facts. If you surrender to what you see, you condemn yourself to live off the remnants of the past. Everything before your eyes is a portrait of who you once were, not who you are now. And yet most accept this portrait as a sentence and confirm it with thoughts, feelings, and words. It's like looking in a mirror and believing that the reflected image can decide who you are, when in fact the image only exists because there was first a body before it. It's not about denying reality, but about not bowing to it. To deny would be to flee. To transcend is to remain unshaken. It is to look at lack and in silence affirm within yourself, "I am already abundance." It is to look at illness and declare inwardly, "I am already health." It is to face emptiness and maintain, "I am already complete." You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to shout it from the rooftops. You only need to remain faithful to the assumed state, even when everything around seems to mock you. This is the test that separates the few who awaken from the slumbering crowd, because the world, before it surrenders, almost always presents resistance. It's like a wall that rises, not because it's indestructible, but to test if you truly desire to cross. Many retreat at this point, returning to submit to the visible. Few sustain the vision until the end, and these are the ones who see the impossible bend before their silent persistence. Understand, there is no power in the fact. It only seems solid because you forgot that you were the one who summoned it by inhabiting the corresponding state. The power is in the root, not the fruit. If the root changes, the fruit will inevitably have to change too. And if the root is invisible, you don't need to wait for the visible to give any sign to reposition yourself. The Creator doesn't await approval from evidence. They create it. Do not kneel before external evidence. Each time you bow to what you see, you strengthen the prison. But each time you remain faithful to the invisible you've chosen, even when nothing confirms it, you create space for the world to be compelled to yield. Courage is not about winning a war out there. Courage is about remaining unshaken within yourself until the scenario bends to the assumed state. This is the path of those who dare to create instead of react. Imagining is not playing with loose images, nor creating stories to escape reality. Imagining is decreeing. It is the act of molding, in silence and repetition, that which the world will inevitably be forced to reflect. Many confuse imagination with fantasy, and thus remain stuck in the same place. Fantasy is fragile, fleeting. It doesn't take root. It's like a waking dream that serves only as temporary relief. Creative imagination, on the contrary, is persistent, dense, filled with conviction. It doesn't ask, doesn't wish, doesn't plead. It establishes. When you imagine as if reliving a memory, in detail, feeling the weight and flavor of the scene, you are planting a seed in the invisible ground. And this seed, if watered by disciplined repetition, grows until it becomes inevitable. The mistake of most is to imagine once, feel inspired for an instant, and then immediately return to living and thinking as before. It's like casting a seed into the earth and abandoning it without water, without care, expecting it to blossom by chance. Effective imagination demands return, demands continuity, until the internal scene is more vivid than any external evidence. Have you noticed how old memories still affect you, even if the facts themselves disappeared years ago? A smell, a song, or a word can rekindle in seconds an emotion that seems more real than the present moment. This happens because the mind doesn't distinguish between what it has experienced and what it assumes as experienced. When you imagine correctly, you create anticipated memories. The body responds as if it were already true. The heart beats differently. The mind organizes itself in another way. And even your actions change effortlessly because you already see yourself in another place. This is the secret. Imagining is not creating something distant. It is bringing the future into yourself until it becomes a lived past. The external world, slow and obedient, merely follows what you have already established within. That is why discipline is so vital. It's not enough to feel it once. You must return to it, like someone who daily visits a house already built, until it becomes the natural address of your consciousness. Some say, "But I can't believe what I imagine." It doesn't matter. You don't immediately believe painful memories either, but they invade and dominate you until you surrender to them. Creative imagination works the same way. The more you return to the chosen scene, the more weight it gains, until your mind can no longer distinguish it from a real fact. At that point, the external world no longer has a choice. It simply bends. Know this, the universe does not respond to the intensity of your desire, but to the constancy of your imagination. To desire is to wait, to imagine is to decree. One who desires confesses absence. One who imagines with firmness already inhabits possession. And the law does not respond to those who implore, but to those who assume. That is why the world bows only to those who dare to imagine as owners, not as beggars. Therefore imagine not as one who flees, but as one who builds. Repeat, insist, sustain, until the scene becomes inevitable within you. When this happens, the exterior will have no choice but to obey, because what is decreed in the invisible cannot be erased in the visible. It is law. Words change nothing by themselves. You can recite beautiful phrases, pray for hours, repeat affirmations in front of the mirror until you lose your voice. If the inner state remains the same, everything will be in vain. The universe does not respond to the sound of your mouth, but to the silent vibration you sustain as being you. That's why so many cry out and don't receive, ask and don't see change, because even if the lips say, "I am prosperous," the heart murmurs, "I am needy." Even if the mouth declares, "I am loved," the inner being insists, "I am rejected." Even if they repeat, "I am healthy," the body vibrates with the fear of illness. Life ignores what you say and obeys what you are. The state is more powerful than 1,000 words. It is silent, yet absolute. You can even deceive others, you can even deceive yourself for a time, but you cannot deceive the law. The law only recognizes your vibration, what you truly embody. There's no way to trick the reflection. The mirror does not bend to rhetoric. It merely shows the form you present to it. Look at the religious who pray unceasingly. Look at the optimists who fill their minds with motivational phrases. Look at the desperate who implore for divine favor. And notice how many remain in the same place. This happens because loose words possess no creative power. They are just empty shells. What gives life to a word is the state behind it. When a state is true, the word can even be a whisper and still move worlds. But when the state is false, not even the most fervent shout has an effect. The error of most is to believe that the word, repeated without substance, will convince reality. But reality doesn't need to be convinced. It needs to be molded, and only the state does that. Words can accompany the state. They can reinforce it, but never replace it. The silent command always prevails. That is why often you don't need to say anything to anyone. You can keep your decree in silence, without witnesses, without explanations. Because it is not human ears that need to listen. It is the invisible law that needs to recognize the vibration. If you settle into the state of abundance, health, love without opening your mouth, the world will still respond. People around you will begin to treat you according to that state. Opportunities will arise, doors will open, because everything moves from the inside out. The power was never in the external form of prayer, in the cadence of an affirmation, or in the choice of the right words. The power is in the inner recognition, in the silent state you dare to wear like a second skin. Words can fail, can contradict, can stumble. The state does not fail. The state is law. Therefore, do not be deceived by speeches. What transforms is not what you speak, but what you are. It's not the phrases written in notebooks. It's not the memorized prayers. It's not the promises shouted to the sky. What moves the universe is the silent state you hold as true. As long as you don't change your state, no word will have an effect. But when the state is changed, even in absolute silence, the entire reality bows. What separates those who harvest from those who always give up is persistence. To persist is not simply to wait. It is to inhabit the chosen state as if there were no alternative, as if there were no other path than the one already decreed within yourself. The world will test your firmness. It will present contrary signs, mock your vision, place circumstances before you that seem to confirm the opposite. Not because the law fails, but because the old reflection is still active, trying to convince you to return to the old state. Most yield at this point. They observe the contradictions, become discouraged, tell themselves, "It's not working." And at that instant, they return to the previous state, strengthening the cycle they so desired to break. But the few who persist understand that these resistances are merely shadows of the past, echoes of old states that haven't fully dissipated yet. They know that the invisible is already formed, and it is up to them only to sustain it until the visible yields. To persist is to refuse to negotiate with appearances. It is to not let yourself be seduced by despair, by haste, by the world's logic. It is to be firm within, even when everything outside screams the opposite. Persistence demands a silent courage, different from the courage the world admires. It's not about confronting visible enemies nor tearing down external obstacles. It is to resist the temptation to doubt, to give up, to succumb to fear. It is to remain faithful to the assumed state, like one guarding an invisible treasure that no one else can see. It is to walk each day in the certainty that you already are, even when life still seems not to have received the message. This is the point where many fail. They believe for an instant, but do not sustain it. They declare it for a day, but deny it the next. They enter the desired state, but soon allow their senses to pull them out of it. It's like a farmer who plants and, seeing no fruit the next morning, uproots the seed and starts over indefinitely. No harvest comes from such instability. The true creator does not measure by time, does not calculate deadlines. They persist. They know that reality has no choice because the law cannot be broken. If the state has been firmly assumed, the world is obliged to bow. Perhaps not at the pace your impatience demands, but in the perfect time for the reflection to reorganize itself. Persist even when they mock you. Persist even when nothing confirms your vision. Persist even when the world's silence seems like a denial. Because it is precisely at this point that the old state is dying and the new one is about to be born. Persistence is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Those who retreat never cross. Those who persist always arrive. And when you arrive, you discover that it wasn't the world that changed first. It was you. The state was already real before any proof. The world merely came to confirm what you sustained until the end. To persist is to win without a fight, to conquer without effort, to be faithful to what you already are until there is no alternative but to see the impossible become inevitable. Listen carefully. The time has come to abandon the posture of a beggar before life. You have spent too much time waiting for signs, praying for something to descend from heaven, asking for circumstances to take pity on you. But life is not a capricious master. It is an obedient servant. It never argued with you, it never denied you anything. It merely responded to the state you held as true. The world was never your enemy. It was always your mirror. Now understand, everything is already within you. There is nothing to conquer out there, only to assume in here. You don't need to beg for love, wealth, or health. You need to wear the state of one who already possesses them. You need to walk as an owner, speak as an owner, act as an owner, until the reflection bows. If you continue waiting for reality to give you permission to be, you will remain trapped in the same cycle of absence. But if you dare to assume it in silence, without explanations, without justifications, you will discover that the world has no choice but to obey. Therefore, stop asking. Command, not with empty words, but with the state you hold within your innermost being. Walk from now on as if failure were impossible, because in the law of assumption, to fail is simply not to persist. Everything you desire already is, already exists, is already ready, awaiting only for you to have the courage to inhabit that state without retreating. You are not a spectator of life, you are the source of the life you see. There is no circumstance greater than you. There is no destiny written outside of you. There is only the silent command that emanates from your being and shapes every detail of your experience. So rise and assume it, not tomorrow, not when the facts seem favorable. Assume it now. Persist. And you will see that the impossible is nothing more than the delayed reflection of a state you dared to sustain until the end. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to remember where the world truly originates. Everything you see is merely a delayed reflection of what you've already chosen, consciously or not, within yourself. The human mind, restless and impatient, believes it needs signs, proof, and guarantees before acting, and it is precisely this need that prolongs the journey. The seeker of signs forgets that they are the sign themselves. While you await a response, you are affirming that you haven't yet decided. The truth is, the universe doesn't move by the force of desire, but by the solidity of decision. Desire is needy. Deciding is sovereign. Desire begs, I want. Decision commands, it is. The one who desires projects their power into the future. The one who decides brings it into the now. The difference is subtle, but it's the point where the impossible bends. When you say, with full consciousness, I decide, you are not speaking into the wind, you are pronouncing a law. This phrase is not the pronouncement of a small being asking for permission, but of a consciousness that knows everything already belongs to it in potential. The universe falls silent before a true decision because it recognizes the Creator's authority. Waters move, doors open, people and circumstances reorganize in silence to fulfill the decree. And this is why so few experience the true power of manifestation, because they prefer to ask, wait, postpone, negotiate with destiny, instead of assuming the inner throne and declaring, I decide. When you decide, time ceases to be linear. It bends to your vibration. Opportunities that seemed distant begin to seek you out, not because the world has changed, but because you've shifted from a state of doubt into a state of certainty. The I decide is not born of desperation, but of the consciousness of being. It is the instant when creation is complete, even before eyes can see it. Because in the realm of imagination, the only realm that truly exists, everything assumed with conviction is already done. Deciding is an act of death, not the death of the body, but of the old self, the one sustained by doubts, fears, and hypotheses. Each time you decide something absolutely, a part of you is left behind, because it can no longer coexist with the new state you've chosen to inhabit. This is why most people avoid deciding. They prefer the security of maybe to facing the void of the new. But creation does not flourish in the undecided. The law only responds to the total, the irreversible, the non-negotiable. When you say, I decide, you are burning the bridge back to the old state, declaring that the previous path is closed. And at that exact instant, the universe begins to reorganize itself. The one who doesn't decide lives like a shadow, always at the mercy of chance. They wait for circumstances to become favorable to act, and thus spend their life being shaped by external forces. The Creator, in contrast, decides first and then lets the world adjust. They understand that the physical world is not the cause, but the consequence. What seems solid and immutable today is merely the echo of past decisions. If you want to change the echo, change the voice that produces it, and that voice is your decision. Every true decision demands renunciation. There is no room to keep what was and still receive what will be. To decide is to say no to 1,000 possibilities in order to say yes to just one. And this wounds the ego, which loves to remain open, available, undefined. But power lies in focus. The universe only responds to what is clear. As long as you remain divided between desire and fear, creation remains suspended. Nothing manifests because nothing has been truly assumed. When you decide, dispersed energy collects, the mind quiets, and the body begins to act in coherence with the decided state. Even without realizing it, you begin to think, feel, and choose differently. Everything within you shifts in tone, and the invisible responds to this new inner sound. The old begins to unravel, not because you force it to leave, but because there is no longer space for it. Therefore, deciding is the first act of creation. There is no miracle without decision. The I decide is the moment the seed is planted, even if the soil still seems arid. Don't wait to feel ready, for readiness is born of choice. Decide, and preparation will come. Decide, and strength will come. Decide, and the path will open. Because the law does not obey those who hesitate, but those who declare with their whole being, the old has died, the new already is. And when this is said not by the mouth, but by consciousness, the universe bows, not out of submission, but out of recognition. One does not decide with words, but with posture. The universe doesn't read your lips, it reads your vibration. You can repeat I decide 1,000 times, but if your body still expresses doubt, if your breath betrays fear, and your mind oscillates between yes and no, nothing will move. A true decision is not a sound, it is a state. It is something that occupies every gesture, every glance, every pause. When the decision is authentic, even your silence becomes a command. It is the kind of certainty that doesn't need to be explained. It is felt. There are people who claim to have faith but spend their lives trying to convince themselves. Decision doesn't need convincing. It is simple, raw, and inevitable. It's like the moment a door closes and there's no turning back. The body straightens, the breath changes, the gaze fixes, the entire being aligns. It is in this coherence that power is born. The universe does not obey indecision because it sounds like noise, not direction. Creative energy is precise, and it moves only when it finds clarity. If you say, "I decide to prosper," but still complain, still react with fear, still see yourself as small in the face of circumstances, then your decision is still merely an intention. The gesture contradicts the word, and the universe responds to what is dominant within you, not to what you utter, but to what you vibrate in silence. To truly decide, one must align words with conduct, thought with presence. When your inner state becomes one, there is no resistance in the world capable of preventing manifestation. Pure decision doesn't defend itself, doesn't argue, doesn't seek approval. It simply is. Just as the sun doesn't ask for permission to rise, the one who has truly decided doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Their posture speaks, and everything around, consciously or not, responds to this magnetism. People treat them differently. Doors open, coincidences multiply, not by luck, but by synchronicity. Coherence is the language of creators. Each time you act as if you still doubt, you negate your decision. Each time you remain firm, even in the face of the invisible, you reaffirm your authority. Body and soul must speak the same thing, and when they do, the world has no choice but to agree. Therefore, no longer speak about what you desire. Become it. Walk, breathe, and act as if you already are. Because when your posture becomes your prayer, the universe has already understood everything. Decide and persist. This is where many stumble. Deciding is simple. Persisting is an art. The human mind, impatient, seeks immediate results, and when it doesn't see them, it concludes that nothing is happening. Then it changes its state, changes its belief, changes its decision, and it is in this constant movement that creations unravel. The seed doesn't sprout because the soil is disturbed prematurely. The law hasn't failed, it simply hasn't had enough consistency to operate. When you decide something, the universe begins to reorganize itself in silence. But this process, invisible to the eyes, demands steadfastness. Appearances, for a time, will still carry traces of the old state. Circumstances will test your conviction, not because they want to punish you, but because the visible world is slow to catch up with the invisible. It is the reflection of the old image that is still dissipating. If you remain unwavering, you will see the new take shape. But if you return to the previous state, everything that was moving in your favor will disperse again. Persistence is the proof of faith. Faith is not waiting. It is knowing. Knowing that, even without signs, creation is already complete. When a farmer plants, they don't doubt each morning whether the seed will germinate. They simply trust, water, and wait. Your decision is your seed. To water it is to maintain your inner state aligned, to refuse to look at what is lacking, to deny the old even when it screams. And waiting here is not passivity. It is active trust. It is sustaining the vibration until the invisible becomes visible. The world is a school of patience for those who choose to create consciously. Every apparent delay is a disguised question. Do you persist in what you have chosen, or will you retreat? And the true answer is not in words, but in posture. To persist is to continue being, even when everything invites you to give up. It is to affirm internally, I have already decided, and this is irrevocable. When you persist, energy condenses, probabilities rearrange, and the impossible begins to take form. Everything that seemed still is, in fact, adjusting in silence. But only the steadfast perceive this, because the power of decision lies not in the instant you pronounce it, but in the ability to sustain it when the wind blows against you. So, decide and do not waver, not because you are stubborn, but because you know. The one who persists becomes immutable, and the immutable is what creates the new world. Do not ask for confirmation. The instant you ask for proof, you deny your own creation. The universe is perfect in its silence, and those who trust understand this language. When you truly decide, the invisible has already responded, and everything that follows is merely the inevitable unfolding of that decision. But the mind, accustomed to measuring, comparing, and controlling, cannot tolerate the invisible. It wants to see the sprout before the seed germinates, and that's where many lose power. They trade certainty for doubt, disguised as logic. The person who asks for confirmation reveals that they still don't believe in the power residing within them. They act like a servant who doubts the orders they gave, going back to ensure they were heard. But the Creator does not turn back. They speak once and fall silent. Silence is not weakness, it is authority. It is the confidence of one who knows that a word pronounced with conviction is already law in the invisible. And the law does not fail. What fails is the patience of those who doubt. Do not ask for signs, because the greatest sign is your own inner state. What you feel after the decision is proof that it has been received. If peace covers you, it's because the universe has already begun to work. If anxiety returns, it's because your mind has returned to wanting to control time. No result is born of control. It is born of surrender. And surrender is not giving up. It is confident yielding. It is to say, I have already determined and I am not concerned with how it will be fulfilled. External signs are merely echoes. The tree doesn't need to hear the sound of rain to know it will be watered. It simply extends its roots. So too is the conscious Creator. They don't wait to see, they know. And because they know, everything manifests. The physical world is the last to receive the news. Reality is merely the delayed confirmation of what has already been decreed. When you ask the universe to prove something to you, you are saying, without realizing it, that you don't trust your own word that you uttered. And every doubt is a new decision. A decision contrary to the previous one. Therefore, many create and destroy with the same speed. Learn then to remain silent after deciding. Do not ask, do not seek, do not test. Mature faith does not examine the soil every day to see if the seed has grown. It simply continues living in the state of certainty. The invisible works in silence because true power is silent. One who needs to see to believe is still a student. One who believes without seeing has already understood the law. And the law only serves those who no longer ask for confirmation, because they have already become the answer themselves. Live the consequence of your decision, even if the scenario still lies. The lower mind believes what it sees. Awakened consciousness sees what it believes. This is the difference between one who repeats affirmations and one who becomes the affirmation itself. When you decide, the world may, for a time, appear the same. People will treat you the same. Bills will keep coming. Your body may still react as before. But none of this matters, because the visible is always the last to bow. The seed of the new state is planted, and the soil of physical reality just needs time to germinate what already exists in the invisible. Many give up at this point, thinking that nothing has happened. But the absence of signs is not a negation, it is gestation. The invisible is not ignoring you. It is organizing the variables that sustain what you have chosen to be. And if the impatient Creator pulls up the seed to check its progress, they interrupt the miracle. The universe doesn't need you to supervise it. It needs you to sustain it. To live the consequence of the decision is to act as if you already are. It is not to react to the world, but to lead it. It is to maintain the vibration of the final outcome, even when the narrative still seems to contradict your choice. When you decide to be prosperous, no longer behave as one who hopes to prosper. Behave as one who already is. The difference is subtle, but powerful. The first seeks, the second radiates, and it is this radiation that attracts the events, people, and circumstances that confirm the assumed state. The mind will say, "But I still don't see anything," and you will respond in silence because you are still looking with old eyes. Learn to see with feeling, not with the senses. Feeling is the antenna of creation. What you continuously feel becomes inevitable form. Therefore, when the world lies, the Creator smiles. They know that the lie is merely the last echo of the past. Persist in the consequence of your decision. If you have decided to love, feel love before it arrives. If you have decided to win, walk as one who has already won. Vibration precedes vision. There is no force in the universe capable of resisting a state sustained with faith and coherence, because in the end, reality is not a sequence of facts, but of sustained decisions. Every line of your destiny is written by the silent persistence of what you have chosen to be, and the world sooner or later will obey, because everything assumed with totality becomes law, and the universe with absolute precision will confirm what you once declared in silence. I decided, and so it is. Everything that exists in the visible world is the result of a silent decision made at some point in consciousness. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing arises from emptiness. Reality is merely the reflection of what was inwardly decreed with absolute conviction. And when you understand this, you cease to live as a beggar of destiny and become the author of the narrative you call life. I decide is not just an affirmation. It is the remembrance of a power that was always yours, but which you forgot by believing in appearances. When you say, I decide, the universe instantly reorganizes itself, even if your eyes don't yet perceive it. Every particle, every encounter, every deviation aligns in silence to serve your decision. This is why the true creator speaks little. They know that words carry weight. They know that the sound that leaves their mouth shapes the fabric of reality. Therefore they speak once and remain silent, not out of doubt, but out of certainty. Silence is the seal of mature faith. The one who needs to repeat has not decided. The one who truly decides no longer needs to speak. The average person lives seeking signs, trying to understand the timing of things, as if the universe were something outside of them, a distant power to be persuaded. But awakening begins when you understand that the universe is your own extension, and therefore there is no need to convince what already obeys you by nature. Creation is automatic when consciousness is firm. This is why appearances only confuse the undecided. The decided see beyond them. Hesitation is the poison of manifestation. Fear is merely inverted faith. It is believing in the opposite of what you have chosen. Therefore, when fear visits you, do not fight it. Simply reaffirm in silence, I have decided, I have, and persist, because each time you maintain your decision in the face of chaos, you prove that the power is with you and not in the circumstances. The universe is faithful to the one who is faithful to their own word. It does not respond to what you ask, but to what you are. And to be is to decide. When you assume this state, you cease waiting for tomorrow, because you already inhabit what you desire today. The future bends before the Creator who sustains a total decision. For such a one, the impossible is merely a temporary stage before the inevitable. Then comes the moment of silence. After declaring, be silent. Do not look around seeking confirmation. Everything has already moved in your favor. Creation does not happen with noise, but with authority. The sea parts for those who walk without doubting their step. The mountain bows for those who walk without looking up. Reality obeys those who speak in the name of certainty. Therefore now, ask no more. Decide, feel, live as one who already is. Let the force of your decision fill every thought, every gesture, every breath, and observe. The world will begin to respond not because you convinced it, but because you have become one with what you have chosen. I decide is the return to the throne of being, the point at which creation recognizes its creator. And when you say it in a pure state, the entire universe, in silence, in order, and in reverence, simply obeys.